So welcome to today's session of this phytochemistry phytomedicine internship. So if you have any doubt, any clarification, you can ask me anytime. Anyhow, I just mentioned about the background information related to traditional medicine, and in that we understood the definition, what and all the things that can be called as ethnomedicine or traditional medicine, and what and all the steps you need to follow to explore the natural products for their therapeutic purposes. So these are the things we discussed: introduction to phytomedicine, the step that you need to follow to confirm the biological activity of a phytochemical. So phytochemical is the chemical that is present in the plant, in this case, which is responsible for the therapeutic effect, biological activity. So that is phytochemical. If it is anyhow we are using those chemicals for the therapeutic effects, so you can call them as phytomedicine. You can also call that as herbal medicine. Okay, so these are the some terms that we commonly use to denote the phytomedicines. So we understood the definition of traditional medicine. Then I was mentioning about different medicinal practices that was in practice, and some of them are still in practice. So out of that I mentioned about traditional Chinese medicine. So while explaining, I mentioned about this symbol also, yin and yang. So opposite entities usually complement to one another. So that is the meaning of this symbol. And this is the basis for most of the traditional Chinese practices, also for the traditional Chinese medicine. So I mentioned about the importance of traditional medicine practiced in China, and when we go to the different part of the world, so Japan is neighbor to China, and just like traditional Chinese medicine, Japanese also have their traditional Japanese medicine. So it is called as Campo. Along with that, so Japanese medicine also has acupuncture and acupressure. Okay, so these two are additional practices that Japanese have with respect to their traditional practices, and this is somewhere around 1500 years old. Thing you need to know about traditional Japanese medicine is, so most of the practices are influenced by Chinese medicine only. Okay, so most of it are common in Japanese practices and Chinese practices, but Chinese practices are called traditional Chinese medicine, TCM, and Japanese practices are called Campo. So it is just like how Kung Fu and Karate are different. Okay, so Chinese are experts in Karate, and Japanese are expert in Kung Fu. Of course, it is both is common in both the countries, but that's how it was. So acupuncture and acupressure, you may be familiar with this. So can you give any traditional Indian practice connected with acupuncture and acupressure? Can anybody tell? So what is actually acupuncture and acupressure? ಕೇಳಿದ್ದೀರಾ ಎಲ್ಲಾದರೂ? Okay, how many of you have seen Kung Fu Panda movie?
Yes, sir.
Kung Fu Pandaದಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಬರುತ್ತಾ acupuncture? Okay, so let me show you. ನೋಡಿದ್ದೀರೋ ಇಲ್ಲೋ? ನೆನಪಿದೆಯಾ ಇದು? ದಿಸ್ ಇಮೇಜ್, ದಿಸ್ ಈಸ್ ಆಕ್ಯುಪಂಕ್ಚರ್. ಮ್ಯಾಂಟಿಸ್ ಇರೋದು, ನರು ಸಿಗ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಈ ಥರ ಒಂದು ಟೈಗ್ರೆಸ್ದನ್ನೇ ತೊಗೊಂಬಿಟ್ಟು ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ದೊಡ್ಡದಾಗಿ ಪ್ಯಾಂಡ ಥರ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು ಇಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಟ್ರೈಂಗ್ ಟು ಸರ್ಚ್ ಫಾರ್ ದ ರೈಟ್ ನರ್ವ್ಸ್. ಸಿಗ್ತಿರೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಮೈ ತುಂಬ ಪಂಕ್ಚರ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಈಸ್ ಆ್ಯಕ್ಚುಲಿ ದ ಟ್ರೆಡಿಷ್ನಲ್ ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಕಮಿಂಗ್ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ ಟು ದ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟೇಷನ್, ನೀವೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀರಾ ಆಕ್ಯುಪಂಕ್ಚರ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಆಕ್ಯುಪ್ರೆಷರ್? ಲೈಫಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವತ್ತಾದರೂ ಎಲ್ಲಾದರೂ? ಬೇಗ ಹ್ಞೂ ಅನ್ಬೇಕು, ಇಲ್ಲ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅನ್ಬೇಕು.
ನೋ ಸರ್.
ನೋನಾ? ಓಕೆ. 2 ಜನ ಕಾಲಿಗೆ ಗೆಜ್ಜೆ ಹಾಕ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀರಾ,
ನೋ ಸರ್.
2 ಜನ ಕೈಗೆ ಬಳೆ ಹಾಕ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀರಾ, 2 ಜನ ಮೂಗು ಚುಚ್ಚಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀರಾ, ಕಿವಿ ಚುಚ್ಚಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀರಾ. ಸೊ ಅದೆಲ್ಲದೂ ಆಕ್ಯುಪಂಕ್ಚರ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಆಕ್ಯುಪ್ರೆಷರ್. ಪಂಕ್ಚರ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಏನು ಪಿನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಪ್ರೆಷರ್ ಅಂದರೆ ವಿ ಪುಟ್ ಪ್ರೆಷರ್. ಸೊ ನಿಮಗೆ ಕಾಲಿಗೆ ಗೆಜ್ಜೆ ಹಾಕೋದು ಅಷ್ಟೇ, ಕೈಗೆ ಬಳೆ ಹಾಕೋದು ಅಷ್ಟೇ. ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ನರ್ವ್ಸ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಪ್ರೆಸ್ಡ್ at regular intervals and that has some beneficial effects. Okay, so ನಿಮಗೆ ಬೇಸಿಸ್ ಬೇಕು ಅಂತಂದರೆ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಫೈಂಡ್ ಇಟ್ ಇನ್ ದಿಸ್ ಆಕ್ಯುಪ್ರೆಷರ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಆಕ್ಯುಪಂಕ್ಚರ್ ಲಿಟ್ರೇಚರಲ್ಲಿ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಫೈಂಡ್ ಇಟ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ನೀವು ದಿನ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದೀರಾ, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಹತ್ರ ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ಯು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಆಲ್ ದಿಸ್, ಬಟ್ ಯು ಡೋಂಟ್ ನೋ ದ ಬೇಸಿಸ್. ಸೊ Japanese, what they did, one advantage of Japanese traditional medicine is they have written all these things in a book called Pharmacopoeia. So Pharmacopoeia of Japanese traditional medicine. So that is the first written record of Japanese traditional medicine. Okay, Chinese ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಯಿತು, they kept practicing and through the word of mouth and through practices and popularity, people started doing the same thing. But in Japanese medicine, so they have written it down all the practices and they called it as Pharmacopoeia of Japanese traditional medicine, and it was done in 9th century. So this is about traditional Japanese medicine. And coming to Indian traditional medicines, so Indian traditional medicine is not single practice, but we have several medicinal practices. Whatever is mentioned here are known or popularized in India. So they are a part of Indian traditional practice. So idrolagade Ayurveda is the most ancient one, most popular one, and it dates back to 5,000 years. And in this system of practice, we have a well written documents of medicinal practices, combinations, applications, then related to diet. As I was saying earlier, you even find you can find the plastic surgery and surgery related procedures also mentioned in Ayurvedic literature. So most popular Ayurvedic literature, ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ we have two. One is Charaka Samhita and another one is Sushruta Samhita. Okay, so these two are Ayurvedic books that contains most of the Ayurvedic practices. Then Unani, as I said, Unani is actually foreign. It came to India through Mughals, but Mughals stayed here for almost 300-400 years. So with them it was popularized in India, and Mughals actually didn't go back to their original places, so it stayed in India. So Unani medicine, so after that it became like a Indian medicine only. Then Siddha medicine is the traditional practice followed in Tamil Nadu. Siddha medicine originated in Tamil Nadu and mostly concerned with traditional practices. Yoga, you know about yoga. Naturopathy, I think in the initial session somebody was mentioning about naturopathy. So we have naturopathy, massage, then fragrance related, all those things falls under naturopathy. Then homeopathy is another practice. So homeopathy originally, I don't think it is from India, but in India it is most popular, and most of the English medicine practitioners especially, they may agree with other traditional practices, but they never accept homeopathy as a medicinal practice. ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಇಟ್ ಲೆಫ್ಟ್ ಟು ದೇರ್ ಈಗೋ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ಸ್, ಬಟ್ ಹೋಮಿಯೋಪತಿ ನಾವು ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಅಸ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಫೌಂಡ್ ಸೊಲ್ಯೂಷನ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ ಹೋಮಿಯೋಪತಿಕ್ ಮೆಡಿಸಿನ್. ಸೊ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸ್, ಸೊ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ದಟ್ ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸ್ ಕರೆಂಟ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಹಿಯರ್. ಸೊ ಕಮಿಂಗ್ ಟು Ayurveda, so Ayurveda is a medical system primarily practiced in India that has been known for nearly 5,000 years. So among all the known traditional medicinal practices, Ayurveda is the oldest one. ಸೊ ನೀವು ಏನೇ ಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಟರ್ ತಗೊಳ್ಳಿ, ಎವ್ರಿಥಿಂಗ್ ವಿಲ್ ಡೇಟ್ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ ಟು ಇಂಡಿಯಾ ಇನ್ ಒನ್ ಆರ್ ದ ಅದರ್ ವೇ. ಸೊ ಇಫ್ ಯು ರಿಮೆಂಬರ್ ಟೂ ಡೇಸ್ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ ಆನ್ 26 January ಯುರೋಪಿಯನ್ ಯೂನಿಯನ್ ಪ್ರೆಸಿಡೆಂಟ್ ಇಂಡಿಯಾಗೆ ಬಂದಿದ್ದರು. ಐ ಡೋಂಟ್ ನೋ ಹೌ ಮೆನಿ ಆಫ್ ಯು ಫಾಲೋ ದ ನ್ಯೂಸ್. ಸೊ ಅದರೊಳಗಡೆ ಹಿ ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ಡ್ ಹಿಸ್ ಗ್ರೇಟ್ ಗ್ರ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಫಾದರ್, ಹಿಸ್ ಆನ್ಸೆಸ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ವರ್ ಆ್ಯಕ್ಚುಲಿ ಫ್ರಮ್ ಇಂಡಿಯಾ. So he is from Goa. If people try to track their origin, so ultimately they will reach India. So not only for the knowledge, even for the evolution. So that's why India is known as the cradle of human civilization, particularly Sindhu Saraswati civilization. Then the word Ayurveda is a conjugation of two Sanskrit words, Ayush. Ayush means life, Ayush means life, and Veda is the science. So it's a science of life. So thus Ayurveda literally means science of life. So the speciality of Ayurvedic medicine is, so here, unlike foreign medicine, English medicine, here you have practices to prevent the diseases. Okay, so English medicine, if you see, English medicine works only after someone gets the disease. Okay, it is a treatment, but Ayurveda is a prevention, is also included in Ayurveda. So that's why it is mostly focuses on healthy living practices than treating the disease. Okay, so if you are healthy, then you will not get disease. So there is no point in treatment. So that's the basis for Ayurveda. Of course, see, this practice will take too many jobs. So as by now you understand how big the modern medicinal establishments are. So billions of rupees are invested in that, and if you don't get the disease, then all those investment will go waste. And that's why you have a very serious challenge from a well established English medicine practice to counter your Ayurvedic findings. Okay, so that's another challenge you have. So it is like medicinal system not supporting nutritionist. So if a nutritionist says to follow certain kind of diet to keep you healthy, then a medical doctor will not appreciate that. Why? If you are healthy, then he will be jobless. So that's the politics behind these medicinal practices. So Ayurveda, it mostly includes diet and herbal remedies. So while emphasizing the body, mind and spirit in disease prevention and treatment. Okay, so that's why ಇದನ್ನು ನಾವು ಆಯುರ್ವೇದದಲ್ಲಿ ಪಥ್ಯ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. What you call as diet, it's called ಪಥ್ಯ. So you have to follow a particular diet for certain number of time to control the disease. Okay, so mainly it is the controlling of the disease, and then we also have remedies by the form of herbal formulations in Ayurveda. So now let's see why you need to focus much on traditional medicine. Why not the English medicine? So even if I ask you this question, so the very first answer you give probably will be, oh, English medicine will have a lot of side effects, whereas traditional medicine, Ayurvedic and these kind of medicines will not have side effects. That is mostly true. Ayurvedic medicines will not have many side effects. But you also need to know that the modern medicine that has established in present time is actually inspired or extension of traditional medicine. Okay, say for example, when we say anything like penicillin, you know how penicillin was discovered. So penicillin is a metabolite, some fungus, you must know the name of that fungus that produced penicillin molecule, and we identified that penicillin molecule is an antibiotic. So then what we did, so we have a synthetic chemical routes to synthesize the penicillin molecule today. Okay, so today we don't extract that penicillin from that fungus, but we in the laboratory synthesize those molecules. Same way like morphine. Have you heard of the word morphine? Morphine is a ಏನು ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ, ಏನು ಡ್ರಗ್ಸ್ ಅಂತಾರೆ, ನಾರ್ಕೋಟಿಕ್ಸ್. Okay, it falls under narcotic drug, but its main application is it acts as a painkiller. So it acts as a CNS depressant drug, and medical application, it has huge medical applications, and that's why most of the countries growing marijuana plant from which the such cocaine, heroin, these kind of drugs are produced, so that is legal. In India it is not legal, but with permission, with the proper precaution, you can grow these kind of plants also, only for the medicinal purpose. And when I say morphine, so morphine is a natural compound. So just like, let's not go that far, you know about curcumin. The problem with curcumin is we cannot synthesize curcumin in laboratory, but morphine and many natural products can be synthesized in the laboratory. So by this time you should be familiar with the term synthesis. Means, so if you know something that can be synthesized in the laboratory, you will not go for the isolation, extraction of those compounds. You can synthesize, you can produce them in the laboratory with a series of reactions. So that is called the synthesis. And the people who does this kind of synthesis are called synthetic chemist. Okay, so their job will be synthesizing these molecules. And synthetic chemists have great role in pharmaceutical research, especially those who have the chemistry combination BTC idira. Okay, BTC combination. So okay, majority of you are in this combination. So if you want to explore your career options in chemistry, so synthetic chemistry is one of the most challenging opportunity, this thing, career option, and equally it will pay high, but you should remember it is a challenging career option. So then coming back to the traditional medicine, even today, as we understood so far, Africa and India, Africa and Asian countries, we still use traditional medicine as a first line of treatment before the English medicine. So almost more than 80% of the population still use traditional medicine, and we are also maybe one among those population. Second thing, so as earlier I have given you the numbers, so in terms of percentage, we have touched the surface of plant medicine. So only about 4% of the existing plants have been completely explored for their medicinal properties. So we have so much of research things to carry in this context. Then even in the developed countries, people, as I said, because of the side effects and costly medications, people are looking for traditional medicines also. So not only in the we should not use this word, third world countries, even in the developed countries, people are going for the traditional practices. So people have started understanding the importance of traditional medicine, but equally we need to involve the modern medicinal practices, modern experimental practices, to compete with the modern English medicine. So basically at this point, the difference you need to know between traditional medicine and modern medicine is, traditional medicine uses plants, metabolites, the compounds that nature has produced, whereas the modern medicine or the allopathic medicine uses the chemically synthesized molecules. Okay, so that's the difference between traditional and modern medicine, English medicine and traditional medicine. So summarizing the difference between these two, we can go through this table. On one side we have details related to traditional medicine, on the other side we have details related to modern medicine. So traditional medicine may not have all the answers, but it's a good alternative. When I say this, may not have the answers, but you can explore them to find the answers. But in modern medicine, the options are very less. Okay, so you cannot just synthesize some molecule without any background. Okay, it is not like you draw some structure whichever comes to your mind, so you know how to draw chemical structures, and all those things may not be possible to synthesize in the laboratory. So it has a huge limitation. Okay, so nature doesn't have that limitation. One thing is we have not explored it. Second, nature uses enzymes and its own different pathways and systems to produce these metabolites, and there may be a possible molecule available in the nature. So that's the very first thing. Then second, as I mentioned, disturbance ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ ಹೊರಗಡೆಯಿಂದ?
No, sir.
ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ ಇದೆ ಅಲ್ಲ?
Yes, sir.
ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದಲ್ವಾ? ನಮ್ಮದು ಇದು ಇಂಡಸ್ಟ್ರಿಯಲ್ ಏರಿಯಾ ಕಂಡ್ರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದೊಂದ್ಸಲ ಯಾರಾದರೂ ಮಷಿನ್ಗಳದ್ದು ಸೌಂಡ್ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಲ್ಲ? ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂ.
No, sir.
Okay. So coming back to the traditional medicine, as I said, there is a possibility that medicine may be available in the nature. We just not have seen it or have not explored it. Okay, so that is the place where you will come into the picture and you can explore the existing options and you can check for the drug molecules and you can test it against the disease and you can release those as a potential medicines. When it comes to modern medicine, as we saw the timeline, so it will take years of research to synthesize the drug and then check for the biological activity, and more importantly, since these molecules are not naturally produced, they are synthetically produced in the laboratory, so meaning so they are not connected with biological systems, so they always will have side effects. Okay, for now you understand, you know about side effects. I'll give a little more detail about these side effects in a minute, but for now you need to understand natural products usually will not have side effects because they are produced as a part of natural system. Okay, so nature will not produce something that is harmful to the natural system. Of course, adverse effect you can find. Poison is also found in the nature itself, but when it was produced for a specific purpose. Okay, nature will not produce something just to give the side effects. So there's another reason why your Ayurvedic formulations will not have side effects. The third point is, so it is cost effective since it is readily available in the nature. Okay, you can collect it from the nature, you don't put money in synthesizing this molecule. So where the money will go then, so once you identify those molecule, so you have to put money only to reproduce them in the laboratory. So two things, one is synthesis, another is reproducing those molecules in the laboratory. So chemical drugs you need to synthesize them, whereas natural products you need to isolate them. So it is readily available in the nature, you just have to isolate it from the nature. So we know, on the other hand, modern medicines are economical burden, so too much of investment is expected in these research, and since too much of research is expected, the process is also complicated here. And this is about the side effect. So these chemical drugs will usually have side effects, and because of this, the say for example, particularly in this example, you can find the resistance in the species to what we call as drug resistance, antibiotic resistance, whereas in natural products, so since it is a part of nature, so usually another thing you need to remember about natural products is it is not a single compound at work. Okay, so when you take example of Ayurvedic medicine, there when a leaf formulation is given to you, that leaf will not have only one compound, but it will have several compounds, and for the treatment, for the therapeutic effect, such several compounds will be involved in the effect. So what this is called as the synergistic effect, synergism anta kariತೀವಿ. So synergism is the effect produced by multiple compounds. So since multiple compounds are giving you the final result, so even if the microbes produce resistance against one molecule, other molecule will have the medicinal effect. So a drug resistance may not be found in the natural products, especially when you are going with the synergistic effect. So but in the drugs, in the synthetic drugs, the microbes usually develop resistance. Multi-drug resistance is the biggest problem in the antibiotic research today. Okay, so ನಿಮ್ಮ ಪೆನಿಸಿಲಿನ್ ಇವಾಗ ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ದ microbes have developed the resistance against the penicillin. Okay, so though penicillin is the very first antibiotic identified in its purest form today, so that has a lower effect. ಅದೇ ಥರ morphine, what I said earlier, from the plant, so that was the first individual single drug to be identified, but morphine is not that effective in current time as it used to be when it was identified. So resistance has ಎಲ್ಲ ಥರದಲ್ಲೂ ಆರ್ಗನಿಸಮ್ಸ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಡೆವಲಪ್ಡ್ ರೆಸಿಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್. ಇವಾಗ ನಿಮಗೇನೆ ತಗೊಳ್ಳಿ, ಚಿಕ್ಕಕ್ಕಿದ್ದಾಗ ಇಫ್ ಯು ರಿಮೆಂಬರ್ ಇಟ್ ಅರ್ನ, ಐ ರಿಮೆಂಬರ್ ವೆನ್ ಐ ವಾಸ್ ಅ ಕಿಡ್, ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಟು ಗಿವ್ ಹಾಫ್ ಟ್ಯಾಬ್ಲೆಟ್. ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಯಾರು ಅರ್ಧ ಮಾತ್ರೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರಾ? ಯು ರಿಮೆಂಬರ್ ಈಟಿಂಗ್ ಹಾಫ್ ಟ್ಯಾಬ್ಲೆಟ್? ಇವಾಗ ಯಾಕೆ ನಿಮಗೆ ಹಾಫ್ ಟ್ಯಾಬ್ಲೆಟ್ ಜಾಗದಲ್ಲಿ ಇವಾಗ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಎರಡೆರಡು ಮೂರು ತಗೋತೀರಾ? Because even your body has developed the immunity against those molecules. So those molecules no longer effective against your immune system. Okay. So that is nature. ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ದಿನ ಆದರೆ, ಇವಾಗ ಟೀಚರ್ ದಿನ ಬೈತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂತಂದರೆ ಯು ಬಿಕಮ್ ಇಮ್ಯೂನ್ ಟು ದಮ್. ಇದಿದೆ ಬಿಡಿ ಇವ್ರದ್ದು ಅಂತ. ಅದೇ ಥರ ಈವನ್ ವಿತ್ ದ ಡ್ರಗ್ ಸೇಮ್ ಥಿಂಗ್ ಹ್ಯಾಪನ್ಸ್. And the synergism is mentioned in this last point. In the traditional medicine, so synergistic effect are most profoundly found, whereas here, since you will be working on a single drug molecule, so there is no point of multiple drug acting at the same time. So synergy ಅಂತಂದರೆ ಎರಡು ಮೂರು multiple compounds together giving you a result. Okay, so this is the difference between traditional medicine and modern medicine. So challenges for traditional medicine, one is since there is no much research that has taken place, so you don't know, you don't have a exact path to follow. Okay, so you have to explore all the available research options to bring traditional metabolites or traditional medicines to the market. And as I said, people have strong reservations and often frank disbeliefs about the benefits of traditional medicine. I don't know how many of you have already developed, ಯಾಕೆ ಇವರು ಆಯುರ್ವೇದನ ಇಷ್ಟೊಂದು ಅಡ್ವರ್ಟೈಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂತ, you might have developed the thought by now. Okay, because we have that disbelief and reservations for these kind of practices. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಗಾದೆ ಇದೆ ನೋಡಿ, ಹಿತ್ಲು ಗಿಡ ಮದ್ದಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು. ಸೇಮ್ ವೇ ನಮಗೆ ಯೂಶ್ವಲಿ we don't trust our own things. We have to overcome that problem. So I think I discussed about that last class itself. Then another main problem what we are facing is, so it is not it cannot currently it is not being considered as a drug molecule, like it do not fall under the criteria that FDA, Food and Drug Administration, puts to consider something as a drug molecule. Okay, so that's the main reason where all these traditional medicines are rejected. Okay, so we have to work on that aspect also. Okay, so this is one complicated chart. Okay, so I don't know will you be able to understand this or not, but what and all the things you can do to bring traditional medicine to the mainstream medicinal practice. So anta idrolagade we have explained it. So in this case Ayurvedic medicine is considered. Same thing applies to any other medicinal practice also. Okay, so I'll do one thing. So last week onsala please remind me. So once we discuss rest of the part of medicinal practices and extraction and all the processes, we'll come back to this again. Okay, ಇವಾಗಲೇ ನಾನು ಹೇಳಿದೆ ಅಂತಂದರೆ, ಸೊ ನಿಮಗೆ ಫೈಟೋಕೆಮಿಕಲ್ಸ್, ದೆನ್ ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಥಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ನಾಟ್ ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್, ಕ್ಲಿನಿಕಲ್ ಟ್ರಯಲ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನೋದಾಗ್ಬೋದು ಅಥವಾ ಈ ಕಡೆ ಓಮಿಕ್ಸ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಾಟಜೀಸ್ ಆಗ್ಬೋದು, ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ನಾಟ್ ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ ದೀಸ್ ಥಿಂಗ್ಸ್, ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಸೇಫ್ಟಿ, QC. ಸೊ ಒನ್ಸ್ ವಿ ಫಿನಿಶ್, ಒಂದ್ಸಲ ನೆನಪು ಮಾಡಿ ಅಟ್ ದ ಎಂಡ್ ಆಫ್ ದ session, so we will come back to this chart and we'll understand what needs to be done. Okay, so now important part of traditional medicine you need to remember, so that is plant metabolites. Okay, metabolites are the compounds that are produced by the process of metabolic activity. Even you produce metabolites, means your cells produce metabolites. So the simple example of glycolysis if you take, so what happens in glycolysis? So what is the starting compound? ಗ್ಲೈಕೋಲಿಸಿಸಲ್ಲಿ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಏನಿರುತ್ತೆ? ನೆನಪಿದೆಯಾ ಗ್ಲೈಕೋಲಿಸಿಸ್? ಸೊ ಗ್ಲೈಕೋಲಿಸಿಸಲ್ಲಿ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಯು ವಿಲ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಗ್ಲೂಕೋಸ್, correct? So glucose will be broken down to glucose 6 phosphate, glucose 1,6 biphosphate. So if you remember the flow chart, different enzymes come in between and they break that molecule to simpler molecule. And finally, what is the product of glycolysis? So ಬೇರೆ ಎರಡು ಬ್ಯಾಚವರು ಆನ್ಸರ್ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ನೀವು ಹೇಳ್ಬೇಕು ಇವಾಗ. What is the end product of glycolysis?
Glycogen.
ಅಲ್ಲ, ಗ್ಲೈಕೋಲಿಸಿಸ್
Pyruvate.
ಯಾವುದು? ಪೈರುವೇಟ್ ಆರ್ ಪೈರುವಿಕ್ ಆ್ಯಸಿಡ್. ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ನೆನಪಾಯ್ತಾ ಇವಾಗ ಗ್ಲೈಕೋಲಿಸಿಸು? ನೋಡೋಣ, ಗ್ಲೈಕೋಲಿಸಿಸನ್ನು ಏನಕ್ಕೆ ಕಲಿಸಿದ್ವಿ ನಿಮಗೆ? ಎಲ್ಲ ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಗ್ಲೈಕೋಲಿಸಿಸನ್ನೇ ವೈ ವಿ ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ಡ್. ಸೊ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಯು ನೇಮ್ ಎನಿ ಅದರ್ ಪಾತ್ವೇ? ಗ್ಲೈಕೋಲಿಸಿಸ್ ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಬೇರೆ ಯಾವ ಪಾತ್ವೆ ಕಲ್ತಿದ್ದೀರಾ?
Urea cycle.
ಯೂರಿಯಾ ಸೈಕಲ್. ಇನ್ನೊಬ್ರು ಏನೋ ಶುರು ಮಾಡಿ ನಿಲ್ಲಿಸಿದ್ರಲ್ಲ,
Citric cycle.
ಸಿಟ್ರಿಕ್ ಆ್ಯಸಿಡ್ ಸೈಕಲ್. ಯಾಕೆ ಕೇಳಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ ಇವಾಗ. ಯೂರಿಯಾ ಸೈಕಲ್ ನಾನು ಯಾಕೆ ಇದು ಮಾಡಲಿಲ್ಲ, ಸಿಟ್ರಿಕ್ ಆ್ಯಸಿಡ್ ಸೈಕಲ್ ಯಾಕೆ ಕೇಳಿದೆ ಅಂತ. ಯಾಕೆ ನಿಮಗೆ ಇದನ್ನೇ ಪಾಠ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ? ನಮಗೇನು ಬೇರೆ ಪಾತ್ವೆ ಇಲ್ವಾ? ಏನೋ ಒಂದು ಚಾರ್ಟ್ ಇರಬೇಕು. ಸೊ ದೇರ್ ಆರ್ ಸೋ ಮೆನಿ ಪಾತ್ವೇಸ್ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಇನ್ ಹ್ಯೂಮನ್. ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ನಿಮಗೆ ಗ್ಲೈಕೋಲಿಸಿಸನ್ನೇ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ವಿ. ಯಾಕೆ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರಾ? ಯಾಕೆ ಇದನ್ನೇ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಡ್ತಿದ್ದೀರಾ ಅಂತ?
Sir, energy first glycogen.
ಆ ಥರದಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ, ಬಟ್ ಗ್ಲೈಕೋಜನ್ ನಾವು ಹೇಳೋದಿಲ್ವಲ್ಲ. ಗ್ಲೈಕೋಲಿಸಿಸಲ್ಲಿ ಗ್ಲೈಕೋಜನ್ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಸೊ ದ ರೀಸನ್ ಫಾರ್ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್ ಯು ಗ್ಲೈಕೋಲಿಸಿಸ್ ಈಸ್, ಒಂದು ಮೆಟಬಾಲಿಕ್ ಆ್ಯಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ಹೇಗಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ನಿಮಗೆ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೇನ್ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕೆ. ಸೊ ಇನ್ ದಿಸ್ ಕೇಸ್ ದ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಲಿಕ್ಯೂಲ್ ಈಸ್ ಗ್ಲೂಕೋಸ್. Okay, the glucose will be broken down into smaller molecule, simpler molecule, and during each breakdown the energy molecules are released. ನೆನಪಿದೆಯಾ? ಮಧ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಫಾಸ್ಫೇಟ್ ಅಂತ ಬರಿತಾ ಇದ್ರಿ. ಹಿಂಗೆ ಐತಾ? ಯಾರೋ ನಿಮ್ಮದೇ ಹ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ರೈಟಿಂಗಲ್ಲಿ ಬರೆದಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಗ್ಲೂಕೋಸ್ 6 ಫಾಸ್ಫೇಟ್, ಫ್ರಕ್ಟೋಸ್ 6 ಫಾಸ್ಫೇಟ್. ಸೊ ಅಟ್ ದ ಎಂಡ್ ಯು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಪೈರುವೇಟ್. ಬಟ್ ಇನ್ ಎವ್ರಿ ಸ್ಟೆಪ್, ಸೊ ಸಮ್ enzyme is coming, so they have labeled it with numbers 1 2 3 4, and every time you see, so ATP, so it's a breakdown process, and during that breakdown ATP will be used, and that will be broken down into ADP and phosphate. ಓಕೆ, ಆ ಪಿ ಐ ಏನು ಬರ್ತಿತ್ತು, ಡೈಫಾಸ್ಫೇಟ್, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಒಂದು ಫಾಸ್ಫೇಟ್, ಆ ಪಿ ಐ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಬಿಟ್ಟು ಗ್ಲೈಕೋಲಿಸಿಸ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಗ್ಲೂಕೋಸಿಂದ ಗ್ಲೂಕೋಸ್ 6 ಫಾಸ್ಫೇಟ್ ಬ್ರೇಕ್ ಡೌನ್ ಆಗ್ತಾಯಿತ್ತು. ಬ್ರೇಕ್ ಡೌನ್ ಅಂತಂದರೆ ಮುರಿದಾಕೋದು. ಆ ಮಾಲಿಕ್ಯೂಲ್ನ ಬ್ರೇಕ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ನೀಡ್ಸ್ ಎನರ್ಜಿ, ಯುವರ್ ಸೆಲ್ ನೀಡ್ಸ್ ಎನರ್ಜಿ, ಆರ್ ದೀಸ್ ಎನ್ಸೈಮ್ಸ್ ನೀಡ್ ಎನರ್ಜಿ. ಸೊ ದೋಸ್ ಎನರ್ಜಿ ಮಾಲಿಕ್ಯೂಲ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಅಪ್ಟೈನ್ಡ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ATP ಮಾಲಿಕ್ಯೂಲ್ಸ್. ATP ಟು ADP, ಪಿ ಐ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಎನರ್ಜಿ ಬರ್ತಿತ್ತು ಆ ಎನರ್ಜಿನ ಕನ್ಸ್ಯೂಮ್ ಮಾಡಿಬಿಟ್ಟು ಎನ್ಸೈಮ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಟು ಬ್ರೇಕ್ ದಿಸ್ ಡೌನ್. ಇದನ್ನೇ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಯಾಕೆ ಹೇಳಿದ್ವಿ? ಒನ್ಸ್ ಐ ಸೆಡ್, ಸೊ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಟು ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಸೊ ಹೌ pathways or how metabolic processes work. ಇನ್ನೊಂದು, the reason is glycolysis is the simplest biological pathway. Okay, if you go to prokaryotes, bacteria, primitive type of cells to human beings, ಎಲ್ಲದರೊಳಗಡೆನೂ ಗ್ಲೈಕೋಲಿಸಿಸ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. Okay, it is the most simplest process of energy generation. So that's why ನಿಮಗೆ ಏನು ಗ್ಲೈಕೊಲಿಸಿಸನ್ನು ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದು. ಸೊ ಕೊನೆಗೆ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ನೋಡಿ, ಎ ಡಿ ಪಿ ಇರೋದು ಎ ಟಿ ಪಿ. ಸೊ ಯೂಶ್ವಲಿ ನಿಮಗೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕನ್ಸ್ಯೂಮ್ ಆಯಿತು, ಬಟ್ ಯು ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಫೈನಲಿ ಎಂಡ್ ಅಪ್ ವಿತ್ ಗೆಟಿಂಗ್ ಮೋರ್ ಎ ಟಿ ಪಿ ಮಾಲಿಕ್ಯೂಲ್ಸ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಈಸ್ ಗ್ಲೈಕೊಲಿಸಿಸ್. ಗ್ಲೈಕೊಲಿಸಿಸ್ ಆದಮೇಲೆ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಈಗ ಯಾರೋ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರಿ ಸಿಟ್ರಿಕ್ ಆ್ಯಸಿಡ್ ಸೈಕಲ್, ಟಿ ಸಿ ಎಸ್ ಸೈಕಲ್, ಟ್ರೈಕ್ಲೋರೋ ಅಸ್ಟಿಕ್ ಆ್ಯಸಿಡ್ ಸೈಕಲ್ ನೆನಪಿದೆಯಾ, ಅಥವಾ ಕ್ರಬ್ ಸೈಕಲ್. ಓಕೆ, ಕ್ರಬ್ ಸೈಕಲ್ ಎಲ್ಲಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಗ್ಲೈಕೊಲಿಸಿಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲಾಗುತ್ತೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಸೆಲ್ ಒಳಗಡೆ.
ಸರ್ ಗ್ಲೈಕೋಲಿಸಿಸ್ ಮೈಟೊಕಾಂಡ್ರಿಯಾ.
ಗ್ಲೈಕೊಲಿಸಿಸ್ ಮೈಟೊಕಾಂಡ್ರಿಯಾ. ಒಂದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ನಾನು ಹೇಳಿದ್ದನ್ನು ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡಿ. ಗ್ಲೈಕೊಲಿಸಿಸ್ ಹ್ಯಾಪನ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ ಈಚ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಎವ್ರಿ ಕೈಂಡ್ ಆಫ್ ಸೆಲ್ಸ್, ಪ್ರೊಕ್ಯಾರಿಯೋಟ್ಸ್, ಯೂಕ್ಯಾರಿಯೋಟ್ಸ್. ಪ್ರೊಕ್ಯಾರಿಯೋಟ್ಸಲ್ಲಿ ಮೈಟೊಕಾಂಡ್ರಿಯಾ ಇರುತ್ತಾ?
ನೋ ಸರ್.
ಮತ್ತು ಗ್ಲೈಕೊಲಿಸಿಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಗ್ಲೈಕೊಲಿಸಿಸ್ ಹ್ಯಾಪನ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ ಸೈಟೋಪ್ಲಾಸಮ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ನೀವೇನು ಊಟ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ, ಸೊ ಇವಾಗ ಮಧ್ಯಾಹ್ನ ರೈಸ್ ತಿಂದಿದ್ದೀರಾ ಅಲ್ವಾ, ರೈಸ್ ಈಸ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಚ್. ಸೊ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಚನ್ನು ಬ್ರೇಕ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಯು ವಿಲ್ ಗೆಟ್ ಗ್ಲೂಕೋಸ್. ಹೌದು, ಗ್ಲೂಕೋಸ್ ಮತ್ತು ಬೇರೆ ಮಾನೋಸ್ಯಾಕ್ರೈಡ್ಸ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ನಮ್ಮ ಫೋಕಸ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಆನ್ ಗ್ಲೂಕೋಸ್. ಊಟ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರಿ, ಸೊ ಇಟ್ ವೆಂಟ್ ಟು ಸ್ಟಮಕ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ದೆನ್ ಗೋಸ್ ಟು ಇಂಟೆಸ್ಟೈನ್. ಇಂಟೆಸ್ಟೈನಲ್ಲಿ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಅಬ್ಸಾರ್ಬ್ಡ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಸೆನ್ಸ್ ಇಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಗೆಟ್ ಇನ್ ಟು ಯುವರ್ ಬ್ಲಡ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರೀಮ್. That blood will flow to each and every cell of your body. Right, circulation ಅಂತಂದರೆ ಇಟ್ ಫ್ಲೋಸ್ ಟು ಈಚ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಇಟ್ ರೀಚಸ್ ಟು ಈಚ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಎವ್ರಿ ಸೆಲ್. ಸೊ ಆವಾಗ ಏನು ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ದಟ್ ಗ್ಲೂಕೋಸ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಟೇಕನ್ ಅಪ್ ಬೈ ದಿ ಸೆಲ್ಸ್. ಏನು ನಿಮ್ಮ ಇಂಟೆಸ್ಟೈನಿಂದ ಗ್ಲೂಕೋಸ್ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಬ್ಲಡ್ಡಿಗೆ ಜಾಯ್ನ್ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ, ಬ್ಲಡ್ಡಿಂದ ಸೆಲ್ಸ್ ಏನಿದ್ದಾವೆ ದೇ ವಿಲ್ ಟೇಕ್ ಅಪ್ ದೋಸ್ ಗ್ಲೂಕೋಸ್ ಮಾಲಿಕ್ಯೂಲ್. ಸೊ ಸೆಲ್ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಸೆಲ್ ಮೆಂಬ್ರೇನ್ ಪಾಸ್ ಆದಮೇಲೆ ಇಟ್ ಎಂಟರ್ಸ್ ದ ಸೈಟೋಪ್ಲಾಸಮ್. So cytoplasmally glycolysis happens, means the breakdown of this glucose to pyruvate happens in the cytoplasm. Next what happens? So next pyruvate in the Krebs cycle happens. ಇವಾಗ Krebs cycle ಎಲ್ಲಾಗುತ್ತೆ? So Krebs cycle happens in the mitochondria. Okay, ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಪ್ರಿಮಿಟಿವ್ ಆರ್ಗ್ಯಾನಿಸಮ್ಸಲ್ಲಿ Krebs cycle ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಹ್ಯೂಮನ್ಸಲ್ಲಿ ಕ್ರಬ್ ಸೈಕಲ್ ಅಥವಾ ಹೈಯರ್ ಆರ್ಗ್ಯಾನಿಸಮ್ಸಲ್ಲಿ ಯು ವಿಲ್ ಸಿ ಕ್ರಬ್ ಸೈಕಲ್. ಸೊ ಗ್ಲೈಕೊಲಿಸಿಸಲ್ಲಿ ಎಷ್ಟು ಎನರ್ಜಿ ಮಾಲಿಕ್ಯೂಲ್ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ ಅದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಎನರ್ಜಿ ಮಾಲಿಕ್ಯೂಲ್ಸ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ಡ್ ಇನ್ ಕ್ರಬ್ ಸೈಕಲ್. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಸಿನ್ಸ್ ಕ್ರಬ್ ಸೈಕಲ್ ಹ್ಯಾಪನ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ಸೈಡ್ ದ ಮೈಟೊಕಾಂಡ್ರಿಯಾ, ಸೊ ಮೈಟೊಕಾಂಡ್ರಿಯಾ ಈಸ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಆ್ಯಸ್ ಏನು, ಪವರ್ ಹೌಸ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಸೆಲ್ ಅಂತ ಯಾಕೆ ಕರಿತೀರಾ ಅಂದರೆ, ದಿಸ್ ಕ್ರಬ್ ಸೈಕಲ್ Krebs cycle happens inside the mitochondria and more amount of ATP molecules will be generated and those molecules will be stored in the mitochondria. So that's why mitochondria is called as the powerhouse of the cell. Okay na? So this is about the pathways. ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಯಾಕೆ ಬಂದ್ವಿ ನಾವು ಅಂತಂದರೆ, ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಇಫ್ ಯು ಸಿ ದಿಸ್ ಈಸ್ ಅ starting molecule and this is the final product of glycolysis. So this is called metabolite. So some molecule went metabolism by the action of different cellular enzymes and some molecule final product was produced. So this is called metabolite. So remember one thing about metabolites, metabolite ಯಾವಾಗಲೂ final product ಆಗಿರಬೇಕು ಅಂತಿಲ್ಲ. So if you remember Krebs cycle, ಕ್ಲಾರಿಟಿ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಎನಿಹೌ, ಸೊ ನಿಮಗೆ ಇನ್ ದ ಮೆಟಬಾಲಿಕ್ ಪ್ರೊಸೆಸಸ್ ಇಲ್ಲೇ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಇದಾದಮೇಲೆ ಸೊ ಆಲ್ಡೋಲೇಸ್ ಆದಮೇಲೆ ಫೋರ್ತಿಂದ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಹೋಗಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಸಿ 2 ಬ್ರ್ಯಾಂಚ್ ಆಗಿದೆ, ಹೌದಾ. ಇದು ಟ್ರಯೋಸ್ ಫಾಸ್ಫೇಟ್ ಐಸೋಮರೇಸಿಂದ ಇಟ್ ಗೆಟ್ಸ್ ಕನ್ವರ್ಟೆಡ್ ಟು ದಿಸ್ ಅಗೇನ್ ಗ್ಲಿಸರಾಲ್ಡಿಹೈಡ್ 3 ಫಾಸ್ಫೇಟ್, ಗ್ಲಿಸರಿ ಯಾವುದೇನೋ ಬರ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಸೊ ಐ ಡೋಂಟ್ ರಿಮೆಂಬರ್ ದ ನೇಮ್ಸ್. ಸೊ 2 ಪ್ರಾಡಕ್ಟ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ವಾಟ್ ಐಮ್ ಟ್ರೈಂಗ್ ಟು ಸೇ ಹಿಯರ್ ಈಸ್, it is not necessary that all the metabolites you are going to get should be the end product of a biological pathway. So sometimes ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, intermediate molecules will also come out of a biological process. Okay, they are also called as the metabolites. So anything that is produced by the action of metabolic activity, as a result of a metabolic activity, will be considered as a metabolite. So glycolysis ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು ಇದೇನಿದೆ, ಪೈರುವೇಟ್ is a metabolite. So ಅದೇ ಥರ when it comes to plants, so we basically categorize plant metabolites into 2 types. Okay, so one is the primary metabolite. Primary metabolite, you must be you know about primary metabolites, but you never call them with this name. So these are the molecules so that are the results of primary metabolic activity. So primary metabolic activity ಅಂತಂದರೆ that activity that are the basic activities of a cell performed for its survival. ಅಂದರೆ growth is a regular part of cells activity. Then growth and development, reproduction, plant ಅಂತಂದರೆ photosynthesis ಅಥವಾ ಪ್ರೊಡಕ್ಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ಅಮೈನೋ ಆ್ಯಸಿಡ್ಸ್, ಪ್ರೊಡಕ್ಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ಇನ್ನೇನು ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಚ್ ಮಾಲಿಕ್ಯೂಲ್ಸ್, ಪಾಲಿಸಕರೈಡ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಏನಿದೆ, ದೇ ಆರ್ ದ ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಮೆಟಬಲಿಕ್ ಆ್ಯಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ. ಸೆಲ್ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಅದು ಆಗೇ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ರೆಗ್ಯುಲರಾಗಿ. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಆ ಪ್ರೊಸೆಸಲ್ಲಿ ವಾಟ್ ಎವರ್ ಇಸ್ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ಡ್, ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಸಿ like ethanol is produced, lactic acid is produced, amino acids are produced. So they are called as primary metabolites. So idrolagade amino acids, proteins, then sugars, so they are primary metabolites. But plants alle speciality enide, even in human we do produce metabolites, secondary metabolites. So simple definition alli, secondary metabolites are the compounds that are not the result of primary metabolic activity. Okay, so andre sometimes plants produce some molecules as defense, as to attract the insects, they produce some compounds. Then to repel insects, insect repellents will be produced. Then poisons will be produced. ಈ ಥರ ಏನು ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಸೇ ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ನಿಮ್ಮ ರಬ್ಬರ್, ಚಿಕ್ಕಮಗಳೂರಲ್ಲಿ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಸಿ ರಬ್ಬರ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟೇಶನ್. ಸೊ ರಬ್ಬರ್ ಈಸ್ ಅ ಪ್ಯೂರ್ ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ರಿ ಮೆಟಬಲೈಟ್. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಎಕ್ಕೆ ಗಿಡ ನೋಡಿದ್ದೀರಲ್ಲ, ಸೊ ಎಕ್ಕೆ ಗಿಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಲೇಟೆಕ್ಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ಕಮ್ಸ್ ವೆನ್ ಯು ಬ್ರೇಕ್ ಸಮಥಿಂಗ್, ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದ ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ರಿ ಮೆಟಬಲೈಟ್. ಸೊ ದಟ್ಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ಅ ಪಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಮೆಟಬಲಿಕ್ ಆ್ಯಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ, ಬಟ್ ಫಾರ್ ಸಮ್ ಡಿಫೆನ್ಸ್ ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸಸ್, ಫಾರ್ ಸಮ್ ಎನ್ವಿರಾನ್ಮೆಂಟಲ್ factor, so plants adapt themselves to produce those kind of compounds. They are called secondary metabolites. So secondary metabolites usually they consist of kind of compounds called as alkaloids. Then antibiotics is the best example. And you know, fungus name I am not mentioning, and I am expecting you to know the name. That fungus produced the penicillin. It was actually a secondary metabolite. Then nucleosides, quinols, even caffeine, what you people produce in Chikmagalur from coffee. And then what else? Camphor, then ಮ್ಯಾಂಜಿಫೆರಿನ್. ಇವಾಗ ಹೇಗಿದೆ ನಿಮಗೆ ಚಿಕ್ಕಮಗಳೂರಲ್ಲಿ ವೆನಿಲಾ ಬಿಸ್ನೆಸ್ಸು? ಇಯರ್ಸ್ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ ಇಟ್ ವಾಸ್ ವೆರಿ ಸ್ಟ್ರಾಂಗ್. ಸೊ ವೆನಿಲಾ ಈಸ್ ಗ್ರೋನ್ ಟು ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಕಾಂಪೌಂಡ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ವೆನಿಲಿನ್. ದಟ್ಸ್ ಅ ಫ್ಲೇವರಿಂಗ್ ಏಜೆಂಟ್, essence, even therapeutic molecule. So they are the secondary metabolites. Okay, so that is the difference between primary and secondary metabolites. Okay, so now when we speak of therapeutic effect of plant metabolites, so we don't focus on primary metabolites. Okay, plant produce that for its survival, its regular daily activity. So we focus on these secondary metabolites. So these are the ones that have the therapeutic effects. Okay, so that's why ಇಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಮುಂದೆ ನಾವು ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ಮೆಟಬಲೈಟ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಅಂದ್ರೂ, ಸೊ ದೇ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ secondary metabolites only. Okay, so this is that example. Two types of metabolism. Primary metabolism produces primary metabolites. Secondary metabolism produces secondary metabolites. So primary metabolites alli you have your carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, nucleic acid and hormones. So they are a part of regular cellular activity. Secondary metabolites alli ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಏನು ನೆನಪಿರ್ಬೇಕಂತಂದರೆ, ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಮೆಟಬಲೈಟ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಕಾಮನ್ ಇನ್ ಆಲ್ ದ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ಸ್ಪೀಷೀಸ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸ್ಪೆಸಿಫಿಕ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟಲ್ಲೇ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಇಲ್ಲ. ದೇ ಆರ್ ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಕಾಮನ್ ಆ್ಯಸ್ ದೇ ಆರ್, ಇಫ್ ದೇ ಆರ್ ಅ ಪಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಮೆಟಬಲಿಕ್ ಆ್ಯಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ. ಹಾಗೆ ಅನದರ್ ಸೈಡ್ ಯು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ರಿ ಮೆಟಬಲೈಟ್ಸ್. ಅದರೊಳಗಡೆ ಆಲ್ಕಲಾಯ್ಡ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ದೇರ್, ಫ್ಲೇವನಾಯ್ಡ್ಸ್, ಟರ್ಪಿನಾಯ್ಡ್ಸ್, ಫ್ಯಾಟ್ಸ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ವ್ಯಾಕ್ಸಸ್, ಟ್ಯಾನಿನ್ಸ್, ಸೊ ಗ್ಲೈಕೋಸೈಡ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ಈ ಥರ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಡಿಫ್ರೆಂಟ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸಿಫಿಕೇಷನ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ secondary metabolites. So this is one flow chart, and to know about secondary metabolites there are more than like 21 lakh 40,000 secondary metabolites are currently known to us. ಅಷ್ಟುದು ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ನಮಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ. ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ನಾಟ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೋರ್ಡ್ ಈಚ್ ಮಾಲಿಕ್ಯೂಲ್ಸ್ multiple biological activities. So though we know the number, not most of them are identified for their therapeutic effect. So under this secondary metabolites we have major 5 classes. So that includes alkaloids, phenolics, glycosides, tannins and terpenoids. So ಇದು ಕಾಂಪ್ಲಿಕೇಟೆಡ್ ಏನಿಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಆಲ್ಕಲಾಯ್ಡ್ಸ್ಗಳನ್ನು ನೈಟ್ರೋಜನ್ ಕಂಟೈನಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಲಿಕ್ಯೂಲ್ಸ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಯೂಶಲಿ the molecules that fall under alkaloid classification will have nitrogen compounds. Phenolics ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ you know about a phenol, benzene ring ಮತ್ತು OH group ಇತ್ತು ಅಂದರೆ it's called phenol. Benzene ring OH group ಜೊತೆ ಕಾಂಪ್ಲಿಕೇಟೆಡ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ಇದೆ ಅಂತಂದರೆ ವಿ ಪುಟ್ ದಟ್ ಅಂಡರ್ ದ ಗ್ರೂಪ್ ಫಿನಾಲಿಕ್ಸ್. ಗ್ಲೈಕೋಸೈಡ್ಸ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಸಮ್ ಗ್ಲೂಕೋಸ್ ಗ್ರೂಪ್, ಪೆಂಟಾಗೋನಲ್ ರಿಂಗ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ದೇರ್, ಗ್ಲೂಕೋಸ್ ಗ್ರೂಪ್. ದೆನ್ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟ್ಯಾನಿನ್ಸ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಟರ್ಪಿನಾಯ್ಡ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ದೇ ಆರ್ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ಡ್ ಬೈ, ಅವುಗಳಿಗೆ ಈವನ್ ದೇ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಅ ಡಿಸ್ಟಿಂಕ್ಟ್ ಕ್ಯಾರೆಕ್ಟರಿಸ್ಟಿಕ್ಸ್ ವಿತ್ ರೆಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟ್ ಟು ದೇರ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ಸ್. ಓಕೆ, ದಿಸ್ ಈಸ್ ದಟ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸಿಫಿಕೇಶನ್. ನೈಟ್ರೋಜನ್ ಕಂಟೈನಿಂಗ್ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಆಸ್ ಎ ಸೈಡ್ ಆಲ್ಕಲಾಯ್ಡ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ. Even some non-protein amino acids are also there. So this may confuse you at this point. So amino acids ನೀವೆಲ್ಲ ಓದಿರ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ we taught you that there are 20 essential amino acids, or proteins are made up of 20 different amino acids ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ವಿ. ಬಟ್ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಬಾಡಿ ಒಳಗಡೆ 20 ಮಾತ್ರ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, 21st amino acid ಇರಲ್ಲ ಅಂತಿಲ್ಲ. Even our body also produces different amino acids, but they are not a standard amino acid, meaning they are not come in the formation of a protein sequence. Okay, they are called non-protein amino acids. So they ನಮ್ಮ ಬಾಡಿಯಲ್ಲೂ ಇದೆ. ಇವಾಗ ಗಾಬಾ ಅಂತ ಒಂದಿದೆ, ಗಾಮಾ ಅಮೈನೋ ಬ್ಯೂಟರಿಕ್ ಆ್ಯಸಿಡ್ ಅಂತ ಅದರ ಹೆಸರು ಗಾಬಾ. ಸೊ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಅ ಅಮೈನೋ ಆಸಿಡ್, ಬಟ್ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ದೇರ್ ಇನ್ ಯುವರ್ ಪ್ರೋಟೀನ್ ಸೀಕ್ವೆನ್ಸ್. ದೆನ್ ಸೈನೋಜೆನಿಕ್ ಮತ್ತು ಗ್ಲೂಕೋಸಿಡಿಕ್ compounds are included under nitrogenous compounds. Phenolic compounds are there. Under phenolic compounds we have flavonoids, anthocyanin ಅಂತೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಕೇಳಿರ್ಬೋದು. So then flavones and flavonols are a part of phenolic compounds. Glycosides are there, and tannins and terpenes. So to complicate a bit for you people, don't worry if you find this complicated. So this flow chart differentiates primary and secondary metabolism. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಮೇಲ್ಗಡೆ ಬಾಕ್ಸಲ್ಲಿ ಇರೋವಂಥದ್ದು ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಮೆಟಬಲಿಸಮ್. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಿಮಗೆ ಪೈರುವೇಟ್ ಬರೋ ಮೆಕ್ಯಾನಿಸಮ್ ಇದೆ, 3-ಫಾಸ್ಫೋಗ್ಲಿಸರೇಟ್ ಅದು ನಿಮಗೆ ಗ್ಲೈಕೋಲಿಸಿಸಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಕಡೆ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ದೆನ್ ಅಸಿಟೈಲ್ ಕೋಯೆ, TCA, ಟ್ರೈಕಾರ್ಬಾಕ್ಸಿಲಿಕ್ ಆ್ಯಸಿಡ್. ಸೊ ಇದೆಲ್ಲದನ್ನು ಯು ಸ್ಟಡಿಡ್ ದಿಸ್ ಆ್ಯಸ್ ದ ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಮೆಟಬಲಿಸಮ್. ಸೊ ದ ಪ್ರಾಡಕ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿಸ್ ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಮೆಟಬಲಿಸಮ್, the cells, what it will do, plant cells, they continue that product for further breakdown, and you have these kind of pathways like shikimic acid pathway ಅಂತ ಒಂದಿದೆ, ಮೆಲನೋಯಿಕ್ ಆ್ಯಸಿಡ್ ಪಾತ್ವೆ ಅಂತಿದೆ, ದೆನ್ ಮೆವಲೋನಿಕ್ ಆ್ಯಸಿಡ್ ಪಾತ್ವೆ ಅಂತಿದೆ. ಇನ್ನೊಂದು MEP ಪಾತ್ವೆ ಈಸ್, MEP ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆನ್ಷನ್ ಈಸ್ ಲಿಟಲ್ ಕಾಂಪ್ಲಿಕೇಟೆಡ್. ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ರಿಮೆಂಬರ್ ದಿಸ್ ಆಸ್ ನಾನ್ ಮೆವಲೋನಿಕ್ ಆ್ಯಸಿಡ್ ಪಾತ್ವೆ ಅಂತ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ರಿಮೆಂಬರ್ ದಿಸ್. ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಶಿಕಿಮಿಕ್ ಆ್ಯಸಿಡ್ ಪಾತ್ವೆ ಒಳಗಡೆ ನಿಮಗೆ ಆರೋಮೆಟಿಕ್ ಅಮೈನೋ ಆ್ಯಸಿಡ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ಡ್. ಸೊ ಆರೋಮ್ಯಾಟಿಕ್ ಅಮೈನೋ ಆ್ಯಸಿಡ್ಸಿಗೆ ಯಾರು ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಕೊಡ್ಬೋದಾ? ಈವನ್ few of the 20 amino acids you know that forms the protein structure, that also has an aromatic amino acid or few aromatic amino acids. Aromatic ಅಂದರೆ ಏನಿಲ್ಲ, amino acid that have some smell, aroma. Aromatic aroma ಅಂದ ತಕ್ಷಣ what you need to remember, the benzene ring ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಅದರೊಳಗಡೆ. ಓಕೆ, ಬೆನ್ಸಿನ್ ರಿಂಗ್. ನಿಮಗೆ ಬೆನ್ಸಿನನ್ನು ಇಫ್ ಯು ರಿಮೆಂಬರ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ಯುವರ್ PU ಟೈಮ್ಸ್, ಬೆನ್ಸಿನನ್ನು ಯೂಶಲಿ ವಿ ಐಡೆಂಟಿಫೈ ದಟ್ ಆ್ಯಸ್ ಅ ಬಿಟರ್ ಆಲ್ಮಂಡ್ ಸ್ಮೆಲ್ ಅಂತ ಬಯಟ್ ಮಾಡಿರ್ತೀರ, ನಾವು ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ. ಸೊ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ಇಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಅ ಡಿಸ್ಟಿಂಕ್ಟ್ ಸ್ಮೆಲ್. ಅರೋಮಾ ನಿಮಗೆ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗೂ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಕೆಟ್ಟದಾಗೂ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಬಟ್ ದ ರೀಸನ್ ಫಾರ್ ದಟ್ ಅರೋಮಾ ಈಸ್ ದ ಪ್ರೆಸೆನ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಆ್ಯನ್ ಆರೋಮ್ಯಾಟಿಕ್ ರಿಂಗ್ ಆರ್ ಹೆಕ್ಸಾಗೋನಲ್ ರಿಂಗ್. ಯಾವ ಅಮೈನೋ ಆ್ಯಸಿಡ್ಸ್ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಆರೋಮ್ಯಾಟಿಕ್ ರಿಂಗ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ? ಇವಾಗ Okay, that's a homework. You check which amino acid has the aromatic ring, or you can just Google for aromatic amino acids. So they are produced by this shikimic acid pathway. They continue up to what I said, alkaloids. So that is nitrogen containing secondary metabolites. So they are produced. Then melanic acid pathway in the phenolic compounds are produced. So idrindanu barutte. Hage from these pathways terpenes are produced. So that is the secondary metabolite pathways. Secondary metabolite ಗೆ ಯಾವ್ದಾದ್ರು ಒಂದು ಪಾತ್ವೆ ಹೆಸರು ಹೇಳಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ನೇಮ್ ಎನಿ ಆಫ್ ದೀಸ್ ಪಾತ್ವೇಸ್. ಯಾರೂ ನಿಮಗೆ ಕೇಳೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ಡೋಂಟ್ ವರಿ. ಸೊ ಐ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ವಾಂಟೆಡ್ ಟು ಡಿಫ್ರೆನ್ಷಿಯೇಟ್ ಬಿಟ್ವೀನ್ ದ ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಮೆಟಬಾಲಿಕ್ ಪಾತ್ವೇ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಸೆಕೆಂಡರಿ ಮೆಟಬಾಲಿಕ್ ಪಾತ್ವೇ. ಸೊ ಮುಗಿಸ್ಬೇಕಾಗಿತ್ತು ನಾನು. ಓಕೆ, ಎನಿ ಹೌ ವಿ ಆರ್ ಔಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಟೈಮ್. ಸೊ ವಿ ವಿಲ್ ಸಿ ಸಮ್ ಡೀಟೇಲ್ಸ್ ರಿಲೇಟೆಡ್ ಟು ದೀಸ್ secondary metabolites. Brief agi we will understand, and in the next class we will start with understanding the practical parts of natural product research, starting with the very first step of plant collection. So we will start with understanding what and all the things you need to remember to start the phytochemical research, and we start with the selection of plants, selection and collection. Okay, so we will start with this in the next session. Okay, so ಇಲ್ಲಿ ತನಕ ಹೇಳಿರೋದು ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗಿದೆಯಾ? So what are the things we discussed? We understood traditional medicinal practices, how they are different from modern medicinal practices, what challenges you have, and this one will come again. We understood the difference between primary metabolites and secondary metabolites, and we heard some new terms so that fall under the secondary metabolites like alkaloids, phenolics, glycosides, tannins. They are the different groups of secondary metabolites. So in the next session, so we will explore those each groups separately. So terpenes, alkaloids anta we'll explore that. Clear idea? So ಸಾಕಾ ಇವತ್ತಿಗೆ? Shall we end here?
Yes, sir.
ಯಾರಿಗಾರು ಏನಾದ್ರು ಡೌಟ್ ಇದೆಯಾ? ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ಲಿ ಫೀಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಪೇ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀರಾ ಅನಿಸುತ್ತೆ, ನಾನು ಟ್ರ್ಯಾಕ್ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ. ಇಫ್ ಎನಿ ಒನ್ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ಪೇಡ್ ದ ಫೀ, ಪೇ ದ ಫೀ ಅಟ್ ಯುವರ್ ಅರ್ಲಿಯೆಸ್ಟ್. Okay, so shall we end the session here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's end the session here. Tomorrow we'll continue with the remaining part. Thank you all.